We now understand the delivery plan. I won't go into all the details, but the plan is for the next 3 years, and this is very important for us. This doesn't mean that the war will last that long. We want the war to end, but we still need to protect Ukraine, our land, and the peace of our people. That's what air defense system is for. I am grateful that we have an understanding of how this project will be implemented over the next 3 years. For today, we can't compensate, because it's about artillery and jets, intelligence, arms defense, air defense first of all. There is no compensation for that. What to do with Patriots? If Americans have this system, Germany didn't produce this system of Patriots, but they delivered us more systems than any other country alone. But they delivered, and we are very thankful for this. But only United States produce Patriot systems, and I can't find for today the alternative. But I think in the future the alternatives will be found. I think we have reached a stage in the war where everyone is fighting for finances. Technology is replacing old equipment and weapons, and in any case the Russians are fighting against sanctions because this will limit their finances. We are also fighting for finances because production is already underway, and there is not enough of it. I think that compensation will be the main thing ahead. This doesn't mean that the war will last that long. We want the war to end, but we still need to protect Ukraine, our land, and the peace of our people. That's what air defense system is for. I am grateful that we have an understanding of how this project will be implemented over the next 3 years. The Russians are fighting against sanctions because this will limit their finances. We are also fighting for finances because production is already underway, and there is not enough of it. I think that compensation will be the main thing ahead.
Germany will help Ukraine to produce more long-range missiles to attack Russia's military targets deep inside Russia. President Zelensky says that more missiles will hit targets in Russia. Meanwhile, Israel has struck Iranian nuclear sites. So what kind of support Germany is ready to provide Ukraine with, and what does the Israeli strike on Iran mean? German Defense Minister Pistorius arrived in Ukraine on an official visit. He met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Leaders reached an agreement on additional investments in defense industry in Ukraine and Germany. Following the negotiations, Pistorius says that Berlin would provide Ukraine with additional military assistance worth 1.9 billion euros. The fund will be used to purchase long-range missiles for Ukraine. In total, Germany military assistance this year will increase to 9 billion euros. At the same time, Pistorius ruled out possibility of providing Ukraine with Taurus long-range missiles.
It's about gaining quick access to the systems, and the best way to ensure that is through money. Germany is prepared to take on the financing, to take part in the financing for long-range fire systems produced in Ukraine, and the first systems should be available in the coming months. And in the planning stage, this has not yet been definitively decided, but there is the prospect of an additional amount of 1.9 billion euros. This will be available in the coming weeks and months, once the decision is made in Parliament. Part of it will be used to finance the long-range fires project. This means Germany will provide around 9 billion euros this year to support Ukraine. We are deeply convinced that it is the job of the Europeans, the European nations, and the European partners to keep supporting Ukraine. We are eager to lead the way and demonstrate corresponding responsibility.
Meanwhile, G7 leaders are getting ready to attend the G7 summit in Canada. This year, the leaders have refused a joint statement so as not to clash with Trump. Instead, G7 will publish separate statements on different topics. Allies are seeking to ease tensions with Trump. As is known, the event is also to be attended by the President Zelensky. Ukrainian president is expecting a personal conversation with Donald Trump at G7. Zelensky plans to discuss with Trump the issue of imposing sanctions against Russia. Ukrainian president seeks to achieve at least understanding of how close the US is to imposing sanctions against Kremlin's economy. Meanwhile, Israel has conducted airstrikes on Iran to destroy country's nuclear program. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that it launched Operation Rising Lion to roll back Iranian nuclear threat. Netanyahu says the operation would take place for as many days as it takes. Netanyahu said Iran has produced enough uranium for 9 nuclear bombs. Quote, If it stopped Iran could produce a nuclear weapon, he said this is clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
Additionally, BBC reports main details about this Israeli strike on Iran. On Friday, Israel launched a series of airstrikes across Iran, targeting heart of the nation's nuclear program. This decisive action resulted in reported deaths of Hossein Salami, the commander of Iranian's Islamic Revolutionary Guards, as well as several high-rank Iranian officials and generals. The Israeli military announced that Iran had fired approximately 100 drones toward its territory in an act of retaliation. However, reports from Israeli media confirms that all of these drones were successfully intercepted. In light of the escalating tensions, a state of emergency was declared across Israel as the clock struck 3 a.m. local time. Loud explosions reverberated the streets of Tehran, shattering the quiet of the night. Iranian state television reported that residential areas were caught in the blast. In Israel, however, residents were jolted awake by the sound of air alert and received urgent emergency alerts on their telephones. The Israeli military asserted that it targeted dozens of military sites, including nuclear facilities in Iran. Hours later, an explosion was reported at the Natanz nuclear facility located in Tehran. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the world's nuclear watchdog, later corroborated that the Natanz facility had been struck. They reported that Iranian authorities assured them there was no spike in radiation levels at the site. Director Rafal Grossi voiced his concern firmly, stating that nuclear facilities must never be attacked. Meanwhile, Iran launched around 100 drones toward Israel. On Friday morning, the Israel Defense Forces reported the Israeli military reported that all of them drones were intercepted in a failed attack to retaliate. In this failed attempt to retaliate, the full strength in the matter them deep appropriate. The ministry described Israel's operation as an act of aggression that asserted that the US government will also bear responsibility. In other international relations, Oman, which has been mediating Iranian nuclear talks, held Israel accountable for this escalation. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the reports of the strikes were concerning and called for de-escalation, as did French officials. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong warned that the strikes risked further destabilizing a region. The strikes were also condemned by Japan, Turkey, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia. China expressed deeply worried about the severe consequences. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged both sides to exercise maximum constraint and avoid further escalation. Regarding casualties, the Israeli Defense Forces reported that the chief of the staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, the commander of Iran's Islamic Revolution Guard, and the commander of Iran's Emergency Command were killed in the Israeli strikes across Iran. IDF stated that this overnight attack targeted over 100 nuclear sites, targeting senior military officials. Iranian state media confirmed that those killed included Hossein Salami, commander-in-chief of the Iranian Guard and also commander of the Khatam al-Nabiyya Central Headquarters and chief of staff of the Iranian Armed Forces. As Axios reports, Israel is directly attacking its biggest enemy without backing and support from the United States. President Trump opposed Israeli attack on Iran, believing a nuclear deal could be struck. However, Israel launched strikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities and military leaders. Trump stated that the U.S. was aware of strikes but not involved militarily. However, Iran's CENTCOM commander remained in high alert. The strikes resulted in deaths of Iranian figures, including General Salami and General Bagheri, as confirmed by Iranian states. In response, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei vowed harsh punishment, and Israel declared a national state of emergency. The Israel operation, involving over 200 jets, aims to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. Prime Minister Netanyahu asserted that the campaign would continue as necessary. IDF indicated that Iran was rapidly progressing toward a nuclear bomb, prompting urgent action. Iran denies such intention, and the US informed allies that it was not involved in the Israeli strikes. Also, Trump's administration told Israel it would not participate in any strike on the nuclear program. Axios reported the US has previously helped to defend Israel against Iranian missiles. However, this operation is targeting Iranian nuclear sites, along with high-ranking official, and Prime Minister Netanyahu stated that planning for simultaneous strikes has been ongoing for months, as Iran is rapidly increasing nuclear capabilities. Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson announced that only essential activities will be allowed in Israel starting Friday morning, including a ban on educational activities. Israel has closed its airspace, and Iran has suspended flights from Tehran. Israeli political leaders have already moved to secure locations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, however, said that Israel took unilateral actions against Iran. Quote, "Our top priority is protecting American forces in the region." He added that the US is in close contact with regional partners and made clear that Iran should not target US interests or personnel. Israel had been preparing for weeks but had told the US it would wait to see the outcome of Trump's nuclear talks, which failed. Netanyahu thanked Trump for his support but did not receive public backing for this attack. A sixth round of negotiations, US-Iran negotiations, scheduled for Sunday, but Israeli attack may have delayed this potential deal. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and glory to Ukraine.